The Forum at 8 on SAFM.
Francis Cornegay, it's an interesting topic. I guess I'd like to start with the Commander-in-Chief of the world's number one economy, the world's largest economy, heading to South Africa. How do you feel about his trip?
Well, I think it's a very, very important trip. You know, it's very interesting because there's been a lot of clamor over the years about when is Obama coming to Africa? When is Obama coming to South Africa? Now, we know, broadly speaking, you know, what his priorities were during his first administration. Now he's coming, and it's an indication that there is more of a shift of attention going on now, where Africa has become much more important as a focus in the second administration. So this is an important trip. And the fact that he's coming to South Africa, given South Africa's status on the continent, it reflects that.
Catherine, would you agree? Would you say there's a renewed focus on Africa now? Obama's spent barely 24 hours in the country since he's been president. He's only visited us once while he was senator. He's now coming to Africa. Only 3 countries selected. That's part of the criticism. How much time is he really going to spend here dealing with the issues on the ground?
Yeah. No, I mean, I do agree with Francis that this is an incredibly important visit for a number of reasons. I think it shows that Obama's focus is shifting a bit away from the domestic issues that took up a large part of his time in his first term. And also, of course, he had to contend with the implications of the global economic crisis and recession during that time as well, which was a major distraction. So I think it's very positive that we do have the world's number one economy starting to put a bit more emphasis on its relationships with Africa. The reality is that the man is very busy. He doesn't have an awful lot of time. So I think the fact that he is choosing to spend a few days in these 3 countries at the beginning of his second term really is a good start, and it's an important way for him to indicate that America still matters to Africa. I think that we've had a sort of a distraction over the last few years where we've had a lot more engagement with the new players, the emerging economies such as China, and of course South Africa's just hosted the BRICS summit. So it's America reinserting itself, if you like, back into the debate in an active way, which I think is positive.
So Catherine's from the SA Institute of International Affairs. Francis, who joins me in studios from the Institute of Global Dialogue. On the line, we also have the Vice Chair of Democrats Abroad, Bishop Robert H. Kelly. Bishop Kelly, very good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm sure you've heard what our 2 guests in studio have to say on the topic. Obama coming to South Africa. It's a new time to come here. Are there vested interests, perhaps, as to why he's coming here? Or is he really coming to set the agenda of Africa and to deal with the issues?
Well, if I could speak frank this morning, because I know time is precious, I think this is the season for Africa to set the agenda for Obama or anybody else that comes through. First of all, let's look at post-apartheid Africa. The number of U.S. pension funds and union funds that have not come in to reinvest after '94. Let's look at the true concept of enterprise funds and what those could do to empower the country. Let's stop talking about the Chinese. The Chinese are not the problem. What the problem is the lack of the capital base on the continent as it grows and expands on many, many fronts. Let's look at a different approach to doing Africa trade. And of course, there's a great need for collaborative efforts across the continent for youth employment, which is the next generation. If we don't do something with that issue, then everything that Africa and South Africa has built will come to naught in the next 20 to 25 years.
We're really going to be focusing on trade matters, and I guess that's part of the reason why President Barack Obama is coming here. We're also going to be considering whether we re-establish the binational commission with South Africa. It was previously chaired by Al Gore and Vice President Jacob Zuma at the time of these 2 countries. Al Gore, of course, the Vice President in the U.S. at the time. Is there any clear indication whether we're going to re-establish this binational commission?
Well, I don't know if commissions were really effective, and perhaps that's why you don't see them with the people of the indigenous of various countries, particularly South Africa. And so you really didn't see a transfer of equity or ownership by American companies on any mass scale. So I'm not in favor of bilateral commissions. I'm in favor of trade talks. You notice when the president of China comes, he comes and he spends a number of days and he does transactions in the best interest of his country. I think they've set a high level of playing for presidents of developed nations, including the United States, to come in and really, in terms of, there's one thing about doing business versus talking business, and I think Africa's at the point now that it ought to encourage the initiation of doing business.
Mr. Konige, we've been discussing this issue of whether we're dealing with the substantive issues on the ground, the challenges that we face. And Bishop Kelly there points out, how much action have we taken if we're just discussing policy issues? This time around when Obama visits, are we going to see action, or are we going to see more policies and talk?
Well, first of all, I'd like to just piggyback on what Reverend Kelly has said, because I agree with him when it comes around to the Binational Commission. What is actually more important than that is the fact that, like the other emerging powers, BRICS countries, there is a strategic and economic partnership between the U.S. and South Africa. Now, that's more important than having a national commission, given what I think Reverend Kelly has laid out there. And that provides the framework for really fleshing out the kind of agenda in terms of economic relations with South Africa and the region, and that needs to happen. I think that people have to back up a bit. You're not going to solve, Africa's problems in one day and one visit. President Obama does not go into any other country and just spend, days and days and weeks. These are if you look at his visits, this is no different from other important visits that he's made. So he's coming here to get in a sense, to get things started or restarted. And then what we have to do is to look at the follow-up. Now, obviously, within the constraints of such an engagement, policy is important, because you cannot have action without policy. What I would like to see is some kind of a framework of relationships that are set up between the U.S. and South Africa and the AU. I think that a sort of a triangular relationship in terms of looking at major strategic peace and security issues, as well as issues of economic integration.
We've got Dr. Chris Landsberg on the line. He says the U.S. is setting the agenda, not South Africa. Hi, Dr. Landsberg.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Let me respond to the question you've just asked about the protest, because it is in the air. We shouldn't duck and dive that issue. What I find so interesting about what's going on about the protests is the timing of the announcements thereof. Let me be very frank for the sake of debate. Some of the critics have said that Obama is about to, quote-unquote, invade our country. Now, if you want to be kind to that statement, you could say they're probably referring to the size of the entourage and the amount of Boeings that are about to come in. But if you want to be unkind, you must say that people, quite frankly, don't understand diplomacy. Obama cannot arrive here without our government inviting him. He has been invited by President Zuma. And this relationship is not as unwarm as people make it out to be. Now, let me say something about the protest. First of all, our Constitution allows it, and I would implore protesters, humbly, do it legally. Come out in your numbers if you so feel. But to expect your government to support an arrest warrant if they've invited this man to the country, I think is about far-fetched. Let me just make one other comment. And Obama's clearly coming with an agenda. It's an economic agenda. I would even put on the cards that Africa finds itself in a very peculiar situation where not just America and Western powers, but the BRICS countries are in it for economic reasons, and so is Obama, which begs the question, what do we do and say? What is our responsibility in setting the agenda? Are we really going to, this weekend, our president and his government going to set not just clear expectations, but spell out what we have in mind from the strategic partnership? Because if we don't do it, then Obama will set the agenda for us, just like the Chinese, the Brazilians, the Indians, and the Russians are. So I want to put firmly on the agenda the question of African leadership, and for us to start to rise to the occasion and speak with more confidence and firmness about what we want out of these relationships.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.